Good evening and welcome to another episode of Life Lessons. I'm so excited about this episode this evening and introducing you to our guest, Stan Cottrell. Stan has lived truly an amazing life. He's now 77 years young, and I met him, I think about a year ago on a phone call. And as fate would have it, we were on another phone call just a few weeks ago. Learning more about him and his life journey. And I thought at the time, my goodness, I need to introduce the world to Stan Cottrell because he has learned some things along this journey of life that I'd love him to share with this audience. So in a few minutes, I'm going to bring Stan on Life Lessons. But let me tell you a little bit about Stan Cottrell. I mean, I was reading his bio. And by the way, it's 20 pages. That should tell you a little bit about some of his accomplishments in life. But listen to this. I'm just going to read a few things. In 1955, he started his running career by winning the county fair 100-yard dash. Since that time in 1955, here's a few of the things that he's done. And it goes on for pages and pages. I'm going to only talk about 4 or 5 of them. In the late 70s, in 1979, he one time ran 167 miles in a 24-hour period of time for the American Heart Association. 167 miles in 24 hours. Get your calculator out and figure out what that is per mile for 24 straight hours. It's crazy. In 1980, he ran from New York to San Francisco in 48 days, setting a Guinness World Record. That was 3,103.5 miles. You don't want to forget the half mile, for heaven's sakes. Every kilometer counts, or every mile counts. 3,103.5 miles in 48 days, and he's in the Guinness World Record for that. In 1982, a 3,500-mile friendship run. There's nothing friendly about that to me, but anyway, Stan will talk about that. But he went from Edinburgh, Scotland, a place I've been that's spectacular, all the way to the Rock of Gibraltar, 80 consecutive days, running 3,500 miles. He's done all these friendship runs in a lot of different countries, like Jamaica and the Dominican Republic and so forth. But perhaps one of the races that he's most known for, in a full film documentary was created. And we're taking 13 minutes of that. I'm going to show it to you in a couple of minutes, called Fire and Jade. It chronicles his 1984 race throughout the People's Republic of China. Imagine that, going to areas where nobody had been to, no foreigner had been to, I believe. 2,125-mile run across the People's Republic of China in 53 days, from the Great Wall, and I think starting around Beijing, all the way to Guangzhou, which, by the way, I was on the phone last night with our president of Greater China, Philip Wong, and he happened to be in Guangzhou last night. So kind of the irony of that. So those are a few of the things that he's done. He's an amazing ambassador for life and for hope and dreams, and showing the capacity of the human spirit. And what you're able to accomplish if you're willing to get out and put one foot in front of another and not give up. And so I'm really looking forward to you meeting Stan. So to start this conversation, I want to have you watch a short video that chronicles his run throughout the People's Republic of China in the 1980s. And we're going to talk about what's happened before the 80s and since the 80s. But let's first start with watching this video called Fire and Jade.
At first, I was just curious. It seemed like such a strange encounter. A lone marathon runner and the unknowable reality of China. But as I watched the man struggle against the ancient and mysterious power of the mountains and the earth, I began to realize I was witness to something approaching truth.
If you ever just really wanted something so bad, and you just hoped and you believed and just longed for something so long, and then all of a sudden one day it's just reality. Well, in my life, on this very day, a very special dream right now is becoming reality.
Today we are very happy to have the famous runner, Mr. Stan Cottrell, to start his great friendship run from the Great Wall in Beijing to Guangzhou. It is a very significant event. It will surely help to promote the friendship and the cooperation between China and the United States.
He had decided to begin his run north of Beijing and run the length of China, about 2,000 miles, all the way to Guangzhou, near the South China Sea. He would run approximately 40 miles a day for 53 days. In the beginning, I watched the run as an incredible demonstration of physical prowess, a torturous, almost impossible challenge to the human body. Then, I became aware I was looking into the very heart of human achievement. As the man pushed himself onward, one by one, some very basic laws began to emerge. Laws which bind the human body and spirit into the most powerful force on earth.
Just tell me that I can't get a hold of the end of the rainbow. You better put your seatbelts on and sit back in your chair, because I ain't gonna let loose until I've got my arms firmly around the end of that rainbow.
Stan Cottrell had a dream. He would run across China. There's a legend here about the ancient poet Li Bo. He dreamed of immortality, and he believed if he could climb Taishan, the highest mountain in eastern China, he could learn how to be an immortal. The remarkable thing about Li Bo was the audacity, the enormous proportion of his dream. Yet achievement is in direct proportion to the magnitude of the dream. If we are to do great things, we must dare to dream great-hearted dreams.
Don't be afraid to step out and follow a dream that's in your heart. Even if you fail, are you still not a better person because you've tried?
In the villages, there is an old folk tale about the rock and the wren. The rock was a great bird like an eagle. It soared through all the known and fabled regions of the universe. Someone mentioned to the wren that the rock could fly hundreds of miles without a halt. You and I know very well, said the wren, that such a thing is impossible. The farthest one can get is the elm tree over there. And so the wren never flew beyond the elm tree simply because it was not familiar with the second important law of achievement. In every wren, there is a potential eagle.
Sometimes it's hard to reduce things to absolute principles, but I know you've got to have a dream. You have to visualize yourself doing what you dream. You've got to put yourself in a position where victory is possible. You've got to turn that dream and that potential into action. Take the first step, not someday, but right now.
For a few weeks, Stan Cottrell ran with a kind of easy and measured grace.
But there came a time when the road grew longer and the hillside steeper, the pain more persistent. A time when it became more and more difficult to remember the power and the quality of the original dream. His lungs struggled to clear away the dust of the road. A bone in his left foot was broken. His lower back was in constant torment. Later, he would learn 2 vertebrae in his back were broken. His body weight grew dangerously low, and the cold winds cut to his heart. The vitamins were gone. The water foul to his taste, and he was not keeping the unfamiliar food down. The runner was discovering another timeless law of human achievement. For every dream, there's a dragon.
We always think about the pursuit of our dreams and the achievement of our goals in positive terms. We talk about possibility and promise, and we ignore the dark side. But the higher our dream, the more lofty our goals, the more powerful are the forces that would deny us both. It is like a dragon, but it's not outside. It's not the mountain or the cold or the distance. It's inside. It's part of us, and it eats away at our heart and our resolve. I don't know why it always takes us by surprise, but if you reach high enough, there will come a moment of truth, a time when you feel the breath of the dragon.
There is a saying among the Chinese people that you can tame the dragon if you know its nature. And the weapon we can use is something known to Western runners and Eastern poets. A concept called the law of fire, jade. It's an awareness of the polarities that define the universe. Mating of opposites. The alternating mastery of sunshine and moonlight. It was a knowledge of this principle that enabled Stan Cottrell to come back from apparent defeat and resume his run.
When you run great distances, the demands on your body and your mind are incredible. And since you run every day, your body doesn't have time to restore itself, and your mind becomes preoccupied with the pain. And what happens is simply this: the fire goes out. It's the same thing in life or business. In the beginning, the excitement and the acceleration of the dream keeps us going. We're all energy and nerve ends. The problem is, when the hard part comes, we've got to keep the dream alive, keep the fires kindled. And this fire burns away the impurities of doubt and confusion and pain, but it also consumes energy. So you have to strike this median. Keep the fire of enthusiasm burning, but on the other hand, maintain an even flow of emotional distribution. This is the cool side of the equation, the jade side.
There was another thing about human achievement I learned from watching the runners' encounter with China. It had to do with time and the impact of a person's life on others. We often think of challenge and achievement as a personal thing, and in a very real way it's true. Each of us has his run to make, no matter who we are or where we live our lives. Nobody can make our run for us. But because time is a stream, touching all lives, everything we do impacts on the lives of others for all time. To wish to succeed, to achieve greatness, is a profoundly selfless concept. If a person fails or even fails to try, there's no change in the status quo. The world is denied a victory, and the whole universe suffers for all eternity. But when a person succeeds, when a person lives his dream and achieves his potential, the whole world feels that victory and is changed forever.
The most important thing I learned on the run had to do with my own motivation. I thought I was motivated by this dream I had to run across China. But when times got hard and it looked like I couldn't go on, what really kept me going was my desire to make a difference in the world, to make my life impact in a positive way on the lives of others. I thought the run would bring the people of China and the people of America together. help create better understanding. Maybe the children I met would be the leaders of tomorrow, and they would remember the American who had become their friend. Maybe the world would be a better place. I think it's true that a selfish dream won't sustain when the going gets rough. But a dream that embraces the lives of others will endure anything the dragon can devise.
The Chinese poet Li Bo dreamed of immortality. As I watched Stan Cottrell run across China, as I talked with him and shared his strange adventure, I began to realize that we too often spend our lives climbing the Taishan, running through the mountains, searching for those qualities of mind and body and spirit that would make us immortal. But the poet and the runner teach us the greatest secrets the ages can offer. Those qualities we seek, those things that would help us reach the summit or complete the run or live more successful lives, we already possess in abundance. We don't have to seek them in the mountains or in the forest on the other side of the earth. To achieve greatness, we must merely look inside and gather the gifts God has already placed there. With these gifts, we are masters of the world around us. We can be anything we imagine, do anything we dream.
And with that short video, it's now my pleasure to bring on from the suburb of Atlanta, Georgia, a gentleman who has run all around the world, Mr. Stan Cottrell. Stan, welcome to this issue of Life Lessons. Thank you so much for joining with me.
Absolutely delighted to be here. Dallin, I've waited 77 years for this appointment and meeting you here the way we're doing via Zoom and also your incredible audience and family and friends and members of your team there.
Well, thank you, Stan. You know, I want everyone to know, a couple of weeks ago, I get a phone call. I think it was from Ken Ralston, and Ken connected me once again with Stan, and Stan wanted to get on the phone with Dr. Bill Andrews. You know, Bill, of course, is a runner. I interviewed Henry Marsh on here, Stan, a couple months ago. Henry's a good friend of mine, 4-time Olympic athlete, held the American record in the steeplechase for like 27 years. And then Dr. William Andrews, who goes out and runs these 100-mile ultra marathons. And now I've got you on Life Lessons. I don't know. We're interviewing all here who understand the value of getting out of the home, off the couch, and going out and putting one foot in front of another. And I've got to tell the audience, when you were on that call with Bill Andrews, and you were just so gracious and so appreciative of him and his science and what he is doing. And then he started asking about you, and you're such a humble person. You were very reticent to really talk about your accomplishments. You wanted to talk about and tell Dr. Andrews, I apologize, I've got all these messages coming in, but to talk about his accomplishments. But when he started asking you about some of the things you've done, and you so humbly shared a few of your accomplishments, I mean, Dr. Andrews went like stone cold silent, and he said, oh, wow. And then he starts texting his wife, and he said, I just texted my wife and said, you need to meet Stan Cottrell. He said, I think, I don't want to put words in Bill's mouth, but it's something along the lines that I'm rarely impressed with people, but with what you've done, wow, I just don't know what to say. Stan, you've run across the country 2 times. I think you've circled the globe. How many times have you circled the globe in your lifetime now?
Distance-wise, about 11 times. I've run more than 260,000 miles. And that's a testimony to the human body and what the human being, and it's not that I'm an anomaly, because everybody has greatness within them. And not that I'm saying I'm great, but I'm saying that we are capable of so much. and we never put ourselves, and this is one of my little themes, position yourself for a victory every single day. And I position myself to win every day. And there is not a day that goes by, Dallin, that at the end of the day that before my eyes close and sleep, that I just say, thank you for that particular instance or this particular thing. And it doesn't have to be world records, but we have victories all around us, and take time to take inventory in the impact of yourself on other people.
I love that. We're going to talk more about that. I want to talk on that video about you running through China.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the video doesn't say that you fell some 200 feet and broke your back. And I don't know, maybe 99 out of 100 people would quit at that point, but Stan, you didn't. And how do you run another 1,000 miles with a broken back? Talk a little bit, maybe take a couple minutes and talk about that friendship run in China, since I just watched the video.
Well, it took me 5 years to get the permission. And I sent a telex every night at 10 o'clock. Some people may remember what telexes are, but I had a telex apparatus in my basement. So every night I sent a telex to Deng Xiaoping. Dear Honorable Deng Xiaoping, I am an American distance runner, and I would like to run across your country. And I had no idea what I was talking about at this point. And I said, I think it will go far in promoting the peace between our two great nations in this great corporate clincher. Please advise. And it just kept going on. But it was 5 years before I ever heard the first word back. And one morning I went downstairs, and here was a telex. Very interested in your run. Be in China in 2 weeks. And I mean, you know, there's a story after story after story behind that. Now, and because of our time, I won't get into all of it, but I'll never forget that when I got the letter and I want to run the Great Wall of China, when I first saw the Great Wall, I went, oh my goodness, me and my big mouth, what have I gone and done? Well, it was a big deal. And Deng Xiaoping, they put on a banquet for me in the Great Hall of the People. And he said to me, Mr. Stan, what do you plan on accomplishing with this run across China? And, you know, I just went, oh my goodness, give me wisdom, give me wisdom. What do I say now? And this, you never know what's in you and what will come out until you're put in a position to do so. And I said, I think that as the Great Wall, it took more than 2,000 years to build, and it was built to keep the foreigners out, to keep the Mongolians out. But I said, this run can be symbolic of just the opposite. And it can be the opposite. It can be symbolic of tearing down the walls which divide our two great nations. But even more than that, it can be symbolic of breaking down the walls that divide one human heart from another.
Oh, and that's so beautifully said, Stan.
And at the very end, after I finished, and yes, I broke my back and ran the last 1,000 miles with 2 broken vertebrae. And that's I didn't know my back was broken. I just knew that I hurt after I fell, and I'm laying there just stunned. The ground gave way and I fell, and I'm laying there, and knowing a little bit about physiology and so forth, I said, well, okay, my fingers can move. And then I started moving my legs a little bit. So I knew that something was, but I knew there was intense pain in my back. And I just felt, well, maybe I've got a sprained back. Well, and I got up and I walked for about 6 miles. And then I was able to continue running, and I went on. But when I got back to the United States, I literally was home for about 2 days, and then I was on my back. I couldn't move. And they took me in and they x-rayed me. Here it is. I got the x-rays, 2 broken vertebrae. And they're still broken, but for some reason, the cartilage and the muscles and so forth are.
Well, probably running another 1,000 miles with broken vertebrae didn't help the recovery of those vertebrae, right?
But
hey, Stan, are you the only American that you're aware of that's ever run the entire length of China?
Yes.
Or has there been ever others since you?
There was an Englishman that ran, but he didn't run the same route I did and so forth. But to my knowledge, there hasn't been another American that's ever done that.
I'll tell you what, with what's going on in the world today, 2021 would be a great time for another American to run, bringing 2 countries together, huh?
Well, at the very end, when I finish, and you saw there in the film clip in Fire and Jade, I'm coming across the finish line, and the thing that's not shown there is the officials saying, how does it make you feel to know that more than 800 million Chinese speak your name today and your name will be written in our history books, is the man that used his running to promote the spirit of friendship. And friendship is such an important concept to them because when you meet with the Chinese, you won't do any business for the first 5 meetings because it's called breathing spirit into the meeting. And they meet with you the first time, they get that feeling. And then the second time they want to have that next meeting to validate what, or will you be the same and will you reappear and reappear and reappear? And now I think there's a lesson there for, I know when I'm in sales or anytime just meeting people, it's building that rapport, undergirding it in a foundation to build on. You just don't run in and say, I've got some Premier I want to sell you, and do you want it or not? No, it's relationship, and that goes into every facet and every aspect of our lives.
Well, I don't want to talk a lot about the Viseo products, but I would maybe for like 30 seconds or 60 seconds, because we got on that call with Dr. Andrews, because look, you're a fine-tuned, a world-class athlete, and I'm sure very in touch with your body, and you got on Premier and you wanted to talk to Dr. Andrews about it. Are you enjoying that product so far?
I love the product, and one of the first things that I noticed, can you see my hand there?
Yep.
See, I'm a little bit nervous right now, but I mean, it's as steady, but ever since I'd been 18 years old, I had this thing called familial tremor. People would say, oh, that poor soul, does he have Parkinson's disease? Is he pre-Parkinson's? No. And, but within 3 capsules of the Premier, I'm writing that morning, wasn't even really thinking anything about it. I'm just, because I was looking at a much larger picture, what this is going to mean to me as a runner. I'm planning on doing my 3rd run across the United States. And so I'm just, after 260,000 miles of running across 40 countries and 77 years, I feel like everything heretofore has just been practice, getting ready. And the major impact of my life, this has all been preparation. Life is a classroom, not a playground. And I'm getting ready. My best is yet to be. So anyway, my hand is not shaking. And this was just something completely, out of left field. So I've studied a lot of microbial genetics and understanding about signaling. And in every cell of the body, we have 100,000 million light switches that control some part. Every light switch has a specific benefit. And so if something's out of balance, it just means one of the light switches is out of balance. And so there's something that unexpected to me that signaled to my body and auto-corrected that shaking in my hand and that tremor. And that was after 3 capsules. And so, I mean, it's shouting time here.
Well, listen, we all want to live long in health. And I love what you said, your best days are in front of you. I want to go back a few decades to when in your childhood, some of your childhood memories. Do you have a certain hero that you had when you were a child, or someone who was, you would say, made the biggest impact on your life as an adolescent?
A teacher. Even before I tell you this, I was the smallest boy in my class. When I was 12 years old, I was 4'9". I weighed 70 pounds. Now that's a problem when you have a dad that's 6'3" and 220 some pounds. And Daddy didn't understand about heredity. Daddy had 49 foxhounds, and that's not counting the pups. But he had 49 foxhounds, backwoods Kentucky, from one of the poorest counties in the United States. And Dad thought I had worms, and every month he gave the dogs a worm and he gave me a worm and says, you just got worms and you're not growing up. And so, I'm dealing with all these psychological things. Psychologists can have a field day with me. But when I was 7 years old, I chased a rabbit one time for 5 hours and caught it. And I've had the opportunity to tell more than 5 million little youngsters in the schools out here about that. And
5 hours? 5 hours you chased a rabbit.
I chased it. And the reason I know it was 5 hours, I finished my work doing the farm work and milking cows and stuff. And it's about 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning. And this little old rabbit ran across the barnyard there. And I said, I want that for a pet. And again, all the things about goal setting and so forth were embodied in that little 7-year-old boy. But anyway, there was a lot of things that I was overcoming, but I discovered that there was something I could do well. And in fact, the farmers started asking Dad, can we borrow your boy? We had an old mule to get out or a cow to get out and we can't catch it and hem it in to get it back in the pasture. Daddy'd say, take him. He said, Dad would say, he's the runt of the litter, so I hope he'll be able to hold up. And I was like, oh, Daddy, I'm not a runt. I'm not a runt. Well, and then when I was 12 years old, I begged Dad, because it was at the county fair, and I asked him, I said, they're going to have a 100-yard dash. Can I run in it? He said, I don't see much good in it, but go ahead. And I was barefooted and had on overall breeches, and I rolled the breeches legs up, and they lined everybody up. There wasn't such things as age groups and getting the lanes and starting blocks and ready, set, go, boom. And I outran everybody, and I won the blue ribbon. And this man came up to me and he said, you know, you sure are little, but boy, them little legs can fly. He said, well, you know, if you keep this up, well, you might just grow up and be a champion someday. And I said, whoa. And it was a eureka moment in my mind. And I said, what is a champion? Because I had no idea about any of this kind of stuff. I just knew that I could run. And so it didn't matter about my size anymore. You know, if you think size doesn't matter, go to sleep in some night in a room where there's a mosquito. You'll find out that this size, it doesn't matter about size, it's the impact.
So you've been running since you were like 6 or 7 years old and haven't stopped.
Yeah, and Dad would wake me up in the morning if I was 5 years old, and he'd say, it's time for you to get up, go run, bring in the cows. When I was 6 years old, he put me under an old cow and said, this is the way it's going to be the rest of your life. And I would miss the school bus at least 3 mornings out of every 5. And I mean, you think about it, Dallin. Here I am, 6 years old and running almost 5 miles to school in the morning. And I know this sounds old as the hills, but that's the way it was. And, but I wouldn't take anything in the world for any of that, because Dallin, the hardships and living, like I say, we didn't have running water or electricity in our house till I was about 15 years old, and Daddy they put an electric line in, and I'd stand there and pull the light switch and just think, golly Moses, look at that, being able to have a light bulb in the house. And so people say, how are you able to do this in all these countries? But that was preparation. That was preparation for going into parts of the world where it wasn't strangers. It was, I knew this way of life.
So Stan, was there a moment in your life where you said, I can take this ability that God gave me to run and my love for running and impact people's lives for the good?
There's a thing, every person has a testimony to share with the world. And there was a time in my life that I was running for just, I call it all the wrong reasons. I was running just for me. And I thought having all the records in the world would, and yes, I set the world record in running across the United States. When I was talking to Bill Andrews the other night, and we were talking about, and he's going after the 100-mile record, and he can break that in 20 some hours. And I had to bite my tongue. I said, well, I did it in 13 hours and 49 minutes, but not at this age right now.
I think that's where Bill went silent.
It was a good conversation, just with kindred spirit there, and he had run 130-some thousand miles, and those are milestones. He's got bragging rights. I mean, and so, but when I started out, and here's the thing: when I ran across the United States and doing these various runs, I was amazed at the people that would come out and wait on the side of the road. Oh, would you just stop? Could we get a picture made with you? And schools would turn out and they'd send word, can you come and would you stop just for a couple of minutes and share something with our students? And I would just, all of a sudden it dawned on me that This is about friendship. It's about building relationships. It's a vehicle. It opens up doors. It opens up doors of opportunity. And I ran across Poland, and I was running for the day the Brandenburg Gate opened up. 150,000 people there were to send me off. And the new U.S. ambassador to Poland, when I got to Warsaw, and they had a little celebration for me, and he said, Stan, he said, what you are doing is having more impact than 1,000 state banquets. And then when I ran across Vietnam, the Russian ambassador to Vietnam, he saw all that was going on, and he was with me all the time. And he said, Stan, you're a politician, aren't you? And I said, oh, no, sir, not at all. He says, no, I beg to differ with you. He said, what I am witnessing with your running, he said, in my 35 years in the diplomatic corps, I have never seen anything as powerful. And being able to bring the accord of what we're trying to do politically, but he said, you're doing it people to people. And that's what it's about, people, making a difference.
Stan, you won that 100-yard dash at the age of 7, is that right?
The 100-yard dash, I was 12 years old.
No, when the county fair.
Oh, the county fair, I was 12 years old.
But you started to run kind of at 7, and now you're 77. We talked about numbers, I think. 7 is a perfect number biblically. And here you are, 77. And you've got this moment in time, this perfect moment in time to share with this audience what you've learned about life. And running has been a vehicle for you to speak into people's lives. I want you to speak into people's lives right now, what you believe, your purpose of why you were put on this planet, what you've learned in these almost 8 decades now about life, and give some advice to people who are listening to you. Just like those people lining the streets in Vietnam and Jamaica and the Dominican, in Poland and China, asking you to stop for a picture. They're looking for wisdom. And you have much wisdom because you've traveled the world, you've spoken into people's lives. I want you to impart some of the wisdom and the life lessons you've learned now to the audience. This is your one moment in time. And by the way, audience, my friends, I want you to know something. I was really moved, almost to tears actually, when I was talking to Stan, because he sent me an email after we talked when I asked him to be on Life Lessons. And he said, after you asked me to be on Life Lessons, I got all teared up, Dallin, because I thought, for Dallin to think that I've got something of value to share with people, makes me very humble. And so, man, I was really moved by that, Stan, because you're just a giant of human being, and you bless so many lives, including my own, in the short period of time that I've gotten to know a little bit about you. But I want you to just impart some wisdom now to the audience about your life lessons, what you've learned, what's been your biggest disappointment in life, what surprised you the most in life. If you were to live your life over again, what would you do different? Anything you'd like to share?
Thank you. Wow. I think as you were asking that question, I'm reminded of my mama when I was 9 years old. And I'm crying one time, and I said, why doesn't Daddy love me, Mama? She says, oh, honey, he loves you. And I started to say something. She said, now, Stanley Jr., hush your mouth, child. God didn't make a mistake on the daddy that he gave you, nor did he make a mistake on the mama that he gave you. He said, and she said, Dad loves you. He may not be able to say it, but I know he does. And I know he's proud of you. And all I knew was I was hurting. And I just wanted Dad to say, I'm proud of you. I just wanted just some kind of affirmation for him. And there's a great ending here. And Mama put her arms around me and she says, I just want you to know God loves you and I love you and you're special. She said, no, you're not just special. You're specialer. And I tell people that all the time. And I've got people all over the world in different languages and so forth, just telling them they're specialer, because every person I meet, you can go to these art museums, and we touched on this, Dallin, you know where I'm going, bless your heart, sir. But we look at these pictures, and these artists, they have 1 over 1. If they make all these copies, they put 1 over 500 or so forth. Every one of us. And we are a 1/1. We are a divine original. There has never been one before us. There will never be another one after us. Each one of us has a unique victory. Each one of us has something unique to give to the world. And life is like a stream touching all lives. Our lives touch all lives. When I succeed, when I live my dream, when you live your dream and you live your passion, all the world feels that victory and all the world is changed forever. We are, I tell everybody, we are and should be a life-changing event for every person that we meet. I don't want to be around anybody that I haven't left something for them. In the middle of every person's forehead, they have 4 letters, MMFI. Make me feel important. And we all want to feel significant. And it's look for the good. Abraham Lincoln said, look for the good in a person, surely you're going to find it. And I look for the good. And yes, we all are flawed, as all are God's children. We all are created from the same clay. We all deal with the same themes in life. We go through the parade of the seasons, and there's 12 great themes: moral, financial, philosophical, theological, relational, and so forth. And it's all about being that life-changing event in a person's life. It's an attitude. Hello, fellow unique, specialer person. I am so blessed to be in your presence. And I want to sit at your campfire, and I've done this with people all over the world. Tell me what you're thinking, how you feel. No matter who we are. I lost a son 12 years ago. My son died and in his sleep. And it just, there's not a day goes by that I don't think of him. But you know what he told me? And God in his wisdom told me, he called me 2 weeks before he died, and he says, Dad, I want you to know, he says, and I say this unashamedly, he says, I know you wonder if I'm a Christian. And he told me why, that he is a Christian. He says, don't ever doubt that. And he said, I just want you to know that I am so proud to be Stan the Third. And he said, Dad, you're my hero. My dad, 41 years ago, this month died. And I used to go around saying, if the man would ever, I know he's not going to ever tell me he loves me. But if he'd ever say, acknowledge me as his son, if he'd ever say that he was proud of me. Mama called me January 1980. We had to put your daddy in the hospital. He was 67 and a half. I tore off up there to Kentucky like you wouldn't believe. And I went into the hospital room. He's chewing tobacco and spitting in a can, spitting in the wastebasket. I said, Daddy, you can't be chewing tobacco in the hospital. He said, I'll chew tobacco anywhere I want to. And I'm sitting there talking with him, and this man walks in with his house coat on, and the man says, oh, I didn't know you had company. I'm sorry. Daddy says, no. He said, come on in. I want you to meet my son, the one I've been telling you so much about, the one I'm so proud of. And I mean, God knew that I needed that. And God knows that each one of us that are listening to me knows that there's somebody that needs to hear their voice, that needs to, you have a gift to give that is priceless, that you can give. And it's not something big or some like running across the United States. And those are just vehicles. That's given me the opportunity to share my heart and the passion and the driving force of my life. And you have a voice and a gift of love to give and a gift of encouragement to give that nobody can give but you and you alone. And it's building that kind of rapport. Be a life-changing event for every person that you meet, a life-changing event for the positive. Woo, I'm on a roll.
That's so good, Stan. You know, this is a pretty philosophical, well, very much a philosophical question, but if I were to boil it down for you like this, and I said, Stan, in your mind, what is the purpose of life? What would you say?
The purpose of life, as far as I'm concerned, is we're created in the image of God, and we're here to glorify God in all that we do. And every person, Dallin, that I meet, in every event, and I pass by people on, and I say, dear Lord, let these people, I may not be able to stop and talk to them, but I just want to be able to make an eye contact and let them just feel God's love flowing through me into their lives. And our lives is a sermon just in itself. And yes, we've had I got to know Billy Graham pretty well, and they helped me in China and opened up doors, and you know, it's pretty neat. And when Billy Graham says, Stan, do you mind if I pray for you? And I fell into his arms. I didn't know he was as tall as he was. And it was such an incredible thing. But regardless, every one of us has a message, and that we're here. And when every day is a new adventure for me, new adventures, new roads to run, new people to meet. And so let me live my life in such a way that when I turn life's last bend, I'm going to face that with zest, because it's going to be my very best. And that's pouring myself out. And it's greatness. Greatness is a profoundly selfless concept. It's dying to self every single day, getting the I, me, and my out of the way. And it's about, what can I do? What can I do to be a blessing to your life? And so many times I'll answer the phone and I'll say, hello, how may I be a blessing to you today? This is Stan. And it's about being a blessing and being a positive benefit into people's lives.
Well, Stan, you talk a lot about dreams, I think. And I think in that 12-minute clip, you talked about something along the lines that, you came to the realization that if the dream is just about you, it's limited. But when your dream is about other people, can you elaborate on that for a couple minutes, maybe?
Yeah. I feel like that our accomplishments are in direct proportion to the magnitude of our dreams. I tell people all the time, dream big, bodacious. There's a good Southern word for you.
Yeah.
Bodaciously, outrageously big. And I don't have a dream big enough to cause God to break out in sweat. So I just say, keep on dreaming, because that's where everything begins, is in the mind. And I'll talk to people at times and I'll say, what are your thoughts? What are your dreams? And they'll say, oh, I don't know, that's weird. Do you think like that? But see, Dallin, from our nose up, there is this organ inside that cranial cavity called the brain. And they say that man could recreate that, even with all this technology in Napa, wherever that is out there in Silicon Valley, they still would need an area the size of the state of Rhode Island to be able to build such a computer than what we have up here. And that computer would cost $100,000 million if we could really create what we have up here. And so, I mean, it's there for a reason. And as I was telling Bill the other night, I said, Bill, don't you just love studying about the human and the human body? We haven't even scratched the surface of the potential and the magnitude of our dreams. And trust your heart, discover what you do well and do more of it. Me, I discovered a long time ago as a little bitty boy, I could just run down the road. And I've just been doing more of it. And you wouldn't believe the dreams that I'm having at 77 years old.
Tell us about it. What's your dream now, Stan?
Well, the next thing is to this third run across the United States. I was going to do it last year, but they had this little thing. And I thought back in February of last year, all this little virus is going to blow over. In four different times it was shut down. So right now, when that epidemiological highway opens up, you're going to hear about it.
That's your dream now, going from East Coast to West Coast?
I'm going to go from west to east this time. It's easier running from west to east. You don't have the headwinds. And,
are you going to come through Utah at all or not?
Oh, yes, sir. I'll be there. As the old saying goes, I'll be grinning like a mule eating brawlers.
Well, so I think it's just so important to continue to have a dream in front of you. It gives you a purpose for life, right?
Well, so many people, unfortunately, you look at them and they're just, they're totally blank. They have no past, no present, no future. They don't even look ahead. They're just you're going to like this one. We're more than some stimulus response robot that's just locked up in an electromagnetic meat house. I mean, we're passion, we're dreams. We have a soul, we have a spirit, we have thoughts. We are the human body. The human being is the most awesome creation in all of creation.
Okay, I'm going to ask you maybe two more questions. We're going to wrap this up. You've run in, I think, 40 countries, 38 or 40 countries around the world. What's your favorite part of this rock called planet Earth that you've been to?
Well, every place has its own unique beauty and people and so forth. As far as I ran from Mendoza, Argentina, over the Andes, and I went over that at 16,000 feet and 1,492 miles. I was part of the celebration of 1492, the 500th anniversary of the discovery of the Americas, and over the Andes to Santiago, Chile, to Porto Plata, I forget whatever it was. But then they flew me to the southern territories in Chile. They wanted me to run Pinochet's Road, and this was 400 miles in the new territory that had just been opened. They said had just been opened, and Dallin, it was a bulldoze path for 400 miles in the wilderness. It'd be like maybe in 1492 landing up in Maine, and so here I am, and here's these waterfalls in its wilderness, and the best salmon fishing in all the world is in southern Chile. And we were catching those big salmon, and heaven knows at night. And one night the crew woke me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Senor Stan, wake up. We killed big mountain ram today. We have big barbecue just for you. So at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm having a barbecue. And so every single run, and that one just.
Well, it sounds like you see the good in people, regardless of where. My experience, Stan, in life is, I think I've traveled over 70 countries, and regardless of people's race or, how they choose to worship, I have found that we have a lot more in common than we have differences.
Oh,
you keep the governments out of it, and you keep politics out of it, and people are genuinely good. And that's been my experience. Has that been yours?
Absolutely. And one of the profound lessons I learned in China, and I'd been going for about 2 weeks, and I mean, you have to unlearn everything that you've ever learned. In China, I spent 49 out of 53 days in what's called the forbidden zones. And I was, one night they brought me out a boiled tortoise shell. And here it was like an inner tube had been boiled, and they put it out there, and I'm going, and they filled it up with rice, and they said, oh, for dignitaries like you. And I said, oh my gosh. And they didn't want me to have potatoes because they said that was peasants' food and they couldn't feed me potatoes. They didn't want to dishonor me. Well, I kind of said something, oh my goodness. And this one girl that spoke English, and she was with the film company, and she held her head down and she says, Mr. Stan, I have to talk to you, and I'll never be able to look at you in the face again. And I said, well, what is it, Leon? And she says, for the last 2 weeks, I think you have complained too much. And it shocked me. And she said, and when this run is over, you will go back to your home in America, and you will go back to your way of life. But she said, this is our way of life. This is our way of life that our ancestors have had 1,000 years ago. And she said, we don't know the things that you know. And she said, I think you see us, but you don't see us. And if you want to really see us, if you want to know who we really are, then you live like we live. You suffer like we suffer. You live the hardships that we live. Then you will understand us. And that was just the good Lord just giving me a whack upside of the head. And it's the truth. And we all are humans. We all are created from the same clay. We all deal with the same things. There's only about a 1% difference in people, and where we live our lives and where we're born, that's just geography. The human family. I mean, I met other people that their children had died, and I recognized that wail in their heart, their cry, and we could identify. And young boys, 16-year-old boys that would look at that 15-year-old girl, and you'd just see that gleam in their eye. And that same gleam that all of us that is in our growing up process, that all of a sudden we realize, woohoo. I asked a little boy one time, he's about 6 years old. I said, are you married? He says, oh God, no. These girls. But then at 16, you change as you go on. Anyway, it's the human family, unique, divinely made, infinite possibilities. And knowledge as we now know it is doubling at the rate of about every 53 hours. And so, I mean, and we've just still barely scratched the surface.
Stan, I often say the older I get, the less I know. I don't know if you feel the same.
Absolutely.
we kind of live life in reverse. Well, we're going to wrap up. I want you to take the last 60 seconds as if this were the last 60 seconds of your life to speak to this audience of the most important piece of advice, your parting advice. If this was your last day, and this was the last moment you have to speak to people for 60 seconds, give them 60 seconds of advice on how to live their life.
Two poems. Everybody's talkers and speaks. They've got to give a poem. Okay, this first poem. Did you tackle that trouble that came your way with a resolute heart and cheerful? Or did you hide your face from the light of day with a cowardly soul and fearful? Oh, a trouble is a ton, or a trouble's an ounce, or a trouble is what you make it. Be proud of your blackened eye. It's not the fact that you're licked that counts. It's how did you fight and why? You know, you be stomped into the ground. If you battled the best you could, if you played your part well, the critics will call it good. The harder you're thrown, the higher you should bounce. Death comes with a crawl, or it comes with a pounce. And whether it's slow or spry, it's not the fact that you're dead that counts, but only how did you die? And living is a dying process. That's poem one. And this is the final poem. I woke up in the middle of the night and I wrote this down, and my hands was just trembling, my little shaky hand. And I wrote this, and it's in 3 stanzas. I hope I get this right. And it goes like this. Go on, go on, go on, go on. That's the end of stanza 1. Stanza 2. Hope I get it right. Go on, go on, go on, go on. Stanza 3, I guess. Stanza, yeah. Go on, go on, go on, go on. Got it?
That's great advice. Stan, man, I've had tears in my eyes through the whole thing.
You're a precious soul, kind sir. You're a precious man, and I thank God for your life. I thank God for the dreams in your heart. I thank God for your obedience in stepping out and saying, here am I, world. Here am I. Here am I. Send me. And following the dreams of your heart. You're making a difference that will echo for eternity. And I thank God for your life, sir, and all your friends.
Thank you so much, Stan. And tell your bride thank you for letting us borrow you for an hour on this life lessons. It's a life lessons that I won't soon forget. So on behalf of all who have watched, we're going to be watching you. Can't wait until this pandemic is over and I can hug your neck and see you along that journey from California to Florida or wherever it goes. And we'll see where this journey in life takes us. And may we all live long in health. God bless Stan Cottrell, your family, and continue to make a significant impact each and every day of your life, Stan, and may we all do the same. God bless each and every one of you, and I look forward to visiting with you again on the next Life Lessons.